Yeah, but that's just what I want. I don't care if you have anything good to say. I'm gonna stop this ticking, all right? Because you can hear it. You can pick it up, you know.
I think John will take that up did you hear the clock ticking?
Yeah, that's what you don't want, you know.
Well, I'm sure that clock is near that, John, so I was
Yeah, it probably is. I don't remember us having a clock.
Here's a big clock. No, that's not a big one when you can hear it ticking, but that seemed to be a big one.
I don't seem to remember having a tick-tock clock like that. Yeah. What do you think of the British soldiers, huh? That's what I want about the British soldiers.
I've never seen anything wrong with them.
Uh-huh. What about the IRA? What do you think they are?
I've never met any of them.
You don't. You did, but you don't know it.
It's good to come camouflage.
Peter, what are your earliest recollections of Ireland when you were growing up?
I'm sure of that.
Yeah, well, whatever, you know. Now I know how to shut you up. I'll just put this on and follow you around with the mic. You'll never say another word. Do you remember when they first went out to Colorado? When they first left? When your father first went out?
No. Well, the first man that came from Colorado was Jim McDonagh. He came there in 1922.
We came back from Colorado.
Yeah, he was on the trip here. And arrived at the Blacktown, and Jim McGorlick was there at the time. He was a guardian for us, you see, at that time. And I don't think he didn't like the setup there, you know. Well, I suppose he thought he was going to be there for good. And there was one day he went berserk. He went into the bar and he fired out all the bottles out through the window, you know. And then this man came up the road, Patrick Carlin. He's up a place up there in Glassmulla. And Tom Emery came up. He had a wee dog with him, you see, and the dog was on the road, and Jimmy came out of the door and he hit the dog with a kick, and he lifted him clean up over the head, you know. And God, Tommy, well, he didn't attack him, but he was mad at Jimmy for doing that, you know. Then, he settled down a wee bit then, and he went on up the road, and, you know, up to Carlin's, and there was a big churn of buttermilk sitting on the floor, and he tipped it over, you know. So I think in the meantime, Jimmy, he called the police, you see, and...
You had phones?
Hmm?
Were there phones?
Oh no, but he sent somebody over to Caleta, like, for the police, where he couldn't manage him, see, he went berserk, just, you know. And so the police there took him. They picked him up and they put him in the carrier and took him to Oma barracks there. Well, they kept him there for 3 days. I think they put him they took him to the mental first, you see, but then they could find out not much wrong with him there, so then they brought him back to the barracks. Well, they kept him there for about a week. So eventually he got home again, back to the Blacktown. But then he settled out a lot then, you know.
Do you ever tell you stories of Colorado and how we got out there?
No, Jimmy went out there, I think he told us he went out there he would be 19 years away at that time, like he went out there in 1903. And he told us he had been in, when our father died, he told he had been in Russia.
Who was in Russia?
Jimmy.
Hmm.
He had been on a tour of Russia during the 1916 there. But he didn't come to Ireland at that time, like, I don't know what he was doing there, like, but Well, then he come here and I think it was arrived here in June, and then he went back to the States. He went back to the States in May.
Following year.
No, that no, I went back in November, like the same year. Like.
Yeah.
Well, the day they left, he come up. I was in Crowley at the time. You see, he came up and we had a wee party for him, you know, before he left there. Like, but you could see nothing wrong with him then, like, you know. Just whatever way it affected him, like he just went getting crazy. You know.
When you went to Scotland to work, what year and why did you go to Scotland to work?
Oh, well, when I was in Owens there, you see, well, we were working there, but then we got no money, you see. Like you were just doing work there and getting nothing for it, and then decided to go to Scotland, you see. Well, you got a job there, but for all that you earned there, you could pay as well.
How much?
We got, you're paid at that time a shilling an hour, like about £2. Something £2.5 a week you'd have got. Well, then they kept a stamp out of that, like it's something over £2, and you give £1, 2 and sixpence for your digs. So then you had only £1 left for cigarettes and tram fare and all that. You see.
What year was this?
That 1932.
And how long did you stay in Scotland?
Oh, about 2 years. There's 2 years there, like in
Where in Scotland?
Glasgow.
How did they treat the Irish in Glasgow?
Well, that time there was no difference. They treated them. Well, if you were Irish there, you got nothing extra. Like you. At that time, the dole was on there, you see. But then, if you were Irish, you see, they wouldn't give you the dole. Like if you went to the exchange there to claim your dole, what you were entitled to, like if you were born there, like there's no objection to giving you the dole. But then, if you went to the dole to claim any money there, they would tell you, why don't you join the army? That's where you want to work, join the army or do farm work. There's plenty of farm work for you to do if you wanted it. Like it. The dole was out for Irish there.
What were the conditions of the digs?
They were rough, you know, very rough. And cooking, it put you up rough old grub, you know. It wasn't palatable at all, most of it, you know.
How many people to a room, or was it big houses?
Oh, it was about, there 4 rooms, tenements we stopped in. There were about 3 to the room, like. And then the grub, your lunch is put up there for the following day, you know, and just sandwiches and eggs, you know. And then by the time that you come to 12 o'clock, that old egg was hard, you know, and it didn't agree with me anyway, like.
What kind of work did you do in Scotland?
We were on housing work, you know, building houses, you know, and carrying the hod and mixing concrete and stuff like that, you know. That's usually what the Irishmen were doing at that time in Scotland. Like.
And then what made you come back to Ireland?
Well, my health gave out there, like, didn't agree with Scotland, never agreed with me anyway, like, I couldn't stay there. I stayed there for 2 years, like. But the food went wrong altogether. Like.
So you came back to Tyrone?
Come back to Tyrone, yeah.
And what did you do then when you came back?
Oh, start the same thing, just, you know, smuggling. At that time the smuggling started, you know. We started the smuggling and, you know, you always got a few pound for driving cattle, you know, at night there or something to that effect, you know.
You were driving them from the south to the north?
We took them from the south and then crossed them the border and took them to the fairs here in the north and sold them off, you know.
What made you immigrate to New Zealand then? Was it you immigrated there? You didn't just go there for work? You were just moving out?
Oh God, it's immigration. Well, Lord, there's no other way you could go. Like, there's no assisted passage in New Zealand at that time, like, but Paddy McHugh was going out there. I went out with him, just on spec.
Mm. Why did you pick New Zealand?
Oh, well, it's the best country. I thought Australia or New Zealand, you see, and Paddy was going there, so I just went with him.
You never thought about the States?
Well, you wouldn't have got hardly to the States at that time, like there was no...
The Depression was on. What year was this?
Well, that'd be 1938. Mm-hmm. It was after the Depression, like.
Could you describe the process of how you went from the little house in Tyrone to New Zealand?
The process?
Yeah, the traveling involved.
Oh, we left here on a Monday morning. We left Oma Station, and 7 weeks from I left here, we arrived in Auckland. We went on the Connard, no, it wasn't the Connard, it was the Aberdeen and Commonwealth line. She sailed from Southampton. I was stopped at Malta.
Well, how did you get to Southampton?
We went from Belfast to Liverpool, then to London.
By what train then?
By train, and then stopped overnight in London, and then went down from London to Southampton to get the boat she was sailing from Southampton to Brisbane. She was travelling on that route. And then we stopped in Malta and Egypt, India, Cologne, and Perth, Fremantle, and Melbourne, and Adelaide. Then we only went as far as Sydney. We stopped. Then when I got to Sydney, you see, I couldn't get the fastest way for me to go was till Wellington, you see. Then I couldn't get a boat from Wellington, so I had to stop 4 days to get a boat to Auckland from Sydney, you see, to New Zealand.
What were the qualifications to get down to New Zealand when you applied for your immigration? Like, did you have to pay your passage, or did you have to stay down there and they give you land, or what was the...
Oh no, we paid our passage.
And what was the passage?
At that time it was £42, like.
One way?
Oh yeah, one way, that's right, one way. Yeah. We were going there, not coming back. See.
Did you go with the intention that you would return someday?
Oh, I did know. Always, any man goes out there like he does, figure coming back sometime, like.
Mm. But what did they offer you if you went to New Zealand? Did they offer you anything?
Oh, they offered you nothing, like. You'd look out for yourself, like. You'd have found a job for yourself, like. They'd offer you nothing. Like.
There was no homesteading or anything that they'd offered you land or anything like that?
Oh, not at that time. Not except had been in New Zealand, like, for a long time, like. Philip McHugh, like, he was there for 12 years at the time, and he took out a farm, you see, on his own.
And what were the conditions on the ship like when you went down there?
Oh God, they were bad, like, they were very poor books, you know. Food was middling, you know.
Yeah.
But then, my God, it was very hot, went through the equator, Mediterranean there, you know.
Did many people die on the ship?
Oh, there was one fella, he didn't die, but he was killed on the boat that I was on. He was an English lad, like he was. They had a swimming pool on the boat there. It was a canvas thing, you know.
Did you sleep on the deck, or you had cabins?
No, we had cabins. Well, this lad, he was 17. The family was going out from England. They were going to Australia. They were going to Melbourne, and he was diving from the top, you know, the rails, into this pool, you see. Whenever we went down, his head hit the bottom, and he broke his neck.
Mm.
And then when he come to Melbourne, oh, it was a sad thing. The family was there, and he was winched off, you know, off the boat with a crane, you know, the coffin was taken down onto the pier, you know, and we buried his boat at Melbourne. The family was there.
What was New Zealand like when you first landed there?
Oh, well, I thought it was very strange with all these married, you know. I never seen any dark fellas before, you know. They're all married, you know. There's around Gisborne there and around.
What was your first job when you were in New Zealand?
We took on highway work, road work, there.
There were no roads at all in New Zealand.
Oh, there were roads, but there were just tracks, very isolated where we were up there on the east coast. Like it was all mountainous there. Just was just that shingle road, just made them along as they went.
Was the pay any good?
Well, it wouldn't have been about the same as England at that time, like about £5 a week I got for their working council work or highway job or like that.
So how long were you in New Zealand then?
Well, I was there from 38 to 41. Like the war started in 39, then we joined up in 1940.
Would you have been conscripted in New Zealand to go into the British Army?
Well, conscription didn't start in 1940, you see. We had volunteered before that, but eventually you would be called up there.
But do you think it's ironic, if you would have stayed in Ireland, you would have never been conscripted, but yet you were in New Zealand, so you would have had to go into the war anyway?
Oh, it wasn't necessary you had to go in, like you could have you could have objected, like they couldn't force you into it, like, but they'd hound you about, and there was nothing else for you to do, like they'd give you no job, or you'd have no means of support, like if you didn't join the army, like if you were eligible for it. But there's a lot of men there that were in positions and farm work there, they'd be exempted from military service. But then the natives in New Zealand, they weren't conscripted at all, like some of the white men that were drafted in there.
Did the Maoris join the services at all? Were they allowed?
Oh, they were allowed, but they were voluntary. We had one battalion of Maoris in the New Zealand division, like, but they were voluntary.
Were they kept separated from the whites?
Oh, they had their own battalion. Oh, yes. They fought with their own men, like their own battalions. But
did they ever mix with the other Kiwis?
oh, they did. Oh, we mixed up all the time there, like, but they had their own battalion, like they were just the same as dark.
And how was the training in the New Zealand Army?
Oh, it was good.
And who gave the training? Was it British officers from England?
Oh no, it was New Zealand ex-servicemen that gave us our training.
From World War One, they would have been.
World War One. Oh, there's some characters there too. First parade we went on, you see, it's in Wellington. We were lined up, and this big sergeant major, he came out and got us on the march, and hold it. He says, not at home now, he says, you bastards. He says, hold up your heads there and swing those arms, he says. And you're just mucking about there, you'd think the dead lice were dropping off you. If you broke your mother's heart, you won't break mine. And that's the stuff they dished out to you.
Did you know what you were going to fight anyway? Or did you know who the enemy was when you were joined up?
Well, the only enemy at that time was the Germans, like there were no other man, there were no other party in the war.
Well, the Japanese weren't in the South Pacific.
Oh, not at that time, no. That was 1940. The Japs didn't come in. We had been in Egypt, you see, when Italy entered the war. Italy didn't enter the war until 1940. We were in Egypt when Italy entered the war.
Well, I don't want to get that far ahead. When you finally got through your training in New Zealand, what happened next? Did you know where you were being sent?
No, we didn't know.
What, you just got on a ship and you just pulled off?
Well, we knew the first lot of troops that left New Zealand, they went to the Middle East. We knew they were in the Middle East, but then the second batch of troops that left New Zealand, they landed in England. And we were the third batch to leave New Zealand. But we didn't know where we were going, like. But we were instructed on tropical
training,
we thought we might be able to land in the Middle East, but we didn't know at that time. Like, of course, the officers knew where we were going, but we didn't know where we were going.
Can you describe that trip from when you left New Zealand? What happened?
Oh, well, we got on the ship there at Wellington on the 1st of February. We left there. Just she was a Dutch liner. She was converted into a troop ship. So what's the name of our now it was again? The New Amsterdam. She was a luxury liner. Well, then they wouldn't chance her too far, you see, and well, Japan hadn't entered the war at that time, but we went from Wellington till Bombay. That's as far as she came.
Was there any stops in between?
I was stopped at Sydney, Adelaide, and Perth, and Eastern Australia.
Did you pick up Australians?
We picked them up on the way, aye.
Did the New Zealanders and the Australians mix?
Oh, they did. Oh, God, aye, they mixed all right, yeah.
Were there any Aborigine battalions?
No, not in the Aussies, no. And we picked up a lad there in Fremantle, like he was an Aussie, 17, and he said he didn't want to be a chocolate soldier, you see. He wanted to see some action, you see.
What was a chocolate soldier?
Well, you know, a chocolate soldier, you'd be about home all the time and you wouldn't see no action, you know.
And that's what they called whoever stayed back in the country.
Well, I mean, if you were kept in Australian territory, in the army like you, they'd be termed as chocolate soldiers, you see, that didn't see, well, no fighting. But this lad, he wanted to get out into the middle of it, you see. So he put on, we give him our gear, you see, our hat and a coat and...
Could you describe your uniform?
Our uniform?
Yeah, what was it like?
Oh, well, our uniform was the same. Well, it was different. It was khaki, you know, like that. Of course, it was a different model from the British, you know. But it was on the same model. But then the Aussies were different. They had a green uniform and these hats, you know, there's sides going up on them.
Weren't your hats different too?
Oh, ours was different. Ours was a peaked hat, you know, with 4 dents in it in the top. But the Aussies' hats, they were turned up at the side, you know. So then we went through the Indian Ocean and this lad, he gave up. He gave himself in, you see. And then the commander...
Give himself in for what?
Well, he told him that he was an Aussie, you see.
What, he had snuck on the ship?
Eh?
Did he sneak on the ship?
He sneaked on, you see. He came with us, he wanted to go with us, and then if we can get you on, we have no objections, you can come with us. So we give him our uniform, you see. And he got up the gangway, you see, and they didn't know any difference. But then when he got out to sea a bit, you see, he told the captain that he was an Aussie, you see. Well, then he could do nothing with him because he wasn't with us. And then he was only 17. And at that time in Australia, you see, you weren't allowed to leave the country without your parents' consent till you were 18, you see. He was only 17. So actually he couldn't have left the country without his parents' consent to fight in an operational and combat zone, you see. So we took him on till Bombay, and then the captain handed him over to the Aussies, and there was a battalion of Aussies at Bombay, so they sent him on to their outfit, you see. And I suppose he went from there till Singapore, I don't know where. Wherever the rest of the Aussies were, they were in Singapore at that time, you see.
So what happened now? Now you're in Bombay. Did you know where you were heading yet?
No, not at but then we got on a British troop ship there. Reed Isle troop ship, you know. That was even worse, like. We come from there to Cairo. We ran it there with the 17th of March.
Did you see any action before that?
Oh, no. Oh, the first action we seen was later on in the November, like. Went into the Western Desert in September.
But you got off in Cairo, then what happened?
Went to Madi, that's the training centre again, you know. There was through a training centre there, you see. Preparing you for the battle zone, you know. Different kits and hand out grubs, you know, and survival kits.
Were you hearing other stories from the front lines? Were you hearing stories of the battles going on? Did that frighten any of the soldiers, or were you ready to go out there and fight?
Oh no, when we were there, we were sent out to another place out of Helban, where we were guarding every battalion got us, we were a month at a time. German soldiers that got taken in from the front. They were at Helwan, and they were mostly Italian soldiers that were there, captured, prisoners of war. And there were some Germans too, so we guarded them for a month, around.
How were they treated?
Oh, they were treated all right, like they were living there in tents. There were thousands of them. There must have been about 30,000 in this big outside Carrow there in the desert. Tents, living in tents, and they had their priests with them, padres, all that.
And then where did you go from there after you?
That would be in June, and then we moved into the Western Desert in September, and then that was the first big push was coming, you see. And then we stayed in huts and dugouts there until November, and then the big Auchinleck, he started the big push there.
Who was this?
Auchinleck. He was commander of the army at that time.
Of what army?
British. Because we were attached to them, and so was the Aussies. Then we went up to City as is. That's where we got captured there for the 21st German Panzer Division, about 20 miles outside of Tobruk.
How did you know who you're fighting, and how did they capture you?
Well, there was nobody there fighting at that time on the Italians, and the Germans. That was most of the Germans we were up against. You see, it was the Germans that captured us.
Yeah, but how did they capture you?
Well, we moved into this area, you see, under cover of darkness, and we were told to dig in. But at the time, it was a heavy thunderstorm, you see, and there was thunder and lightning and everything, and you wouldn't know. Well, at the time we didn't know it was gunfire or lightning, but then on the night we moved in there, we were told to dig in. And then the officer said that when we were there was German columns. They were passing along, you see, on the perimeter where we were, you see, and our fellows opened fire on them with their big 25-pounders, and they blew up one of the trucks. And there were 3 Germans in this truck, and they jumped out, you see, their vehicle was on fire, you see, and they were burning, the clothes was burning as they run, you see, and then they rolled in the sand, you see, to get their uniforms out, you see. So then our fellows went out. The Germans didn't retaliate that evening. They were on convoy, you see. But then we found out the next morning that they were there. There was our patrol went out and take whatever fellows there was 2 of them dead, with the one prisoner in, And then the following morning, we were still ordered to stand to, you see. But I could hear the rumblings out our perimeter, and just as the sun was coming over the horizon in the desert there, the Germans opened fire. They were coming in. They come in with their backs to the sun, and they were firing. And our fellows, they were firing into the glare. They couldn't see. The Germans took that initiative. With their backs to the sun, they could see us better than they could see them. So they fired. We fired. We were in machine gun battalion, but we didn't know where we were firing at. We couldn't see nothing with the dust, and the Germans come right through with their tanks. They passed right through us, and then the motorized infantry came, motorbikes and machine guns on the side. So they rounded us up, took all our grub with them and gear, and then they lined us up and marched us into Badia. That's the prison camp where they put us into.
And how were you treated as a prisoner of war, and how long were you in?
Oh, we'd be there about 6 weeks. We were treated all right, but with no grub. The first 3 days there, we got plenty of water to drink and stuff like that. We were in a compound. There's a wall around it, just on the sea front there. Then the German submarines, they come in and took the officers, picked the officers out of us, and then sent them over to Italy, you see. Then we were there for a few days till we got out.
Well, how did you get out?
With Italian guards, like to get out to get some grub, you see. Well, they threw us in a bag of that old macaroni, and then we had no way of boiling it. So then they put a guard on us and sent us out, and we got out to the roads, and we got these old tar drums and cut them up in two, you know. And then we boiled the macaroni in these old. We boiled the tar drums first, burned the tar out of them first, and then boiled the macaroni in them then, and set up. Well, then there's another parade went out for wood, you know, but boil this stuff.
Yeah. At this time, did you know who was winning the war? How did you get your news of how you were doing, or were the Germans winning, or were you winning, or?
Oh God, I mean, we were in there that time. It couldn't be that we were winning. But when we were there, that was we were there the 7th of September 1941. And that's the time we heard that. Anyway, we had radios there. They didn't know we had the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. We were in Tobruk at that time. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, you know, that was about the 7th of December.
Were you glad to hear that in a way?
Oh, we were. Oh, no.
Why?
Because where we were, you see, out on the Mediterranean coast there, this bad year, you see, it was practically surrounded by, although the Germans had an axe set out of it, it was practically surrounded with the British. So then on New Year's Day, the 1st South African Division, they were outside, they come up, and they relieved us, you see. They got us out from there.
Was there a big fight to get you out of that?
The Germans, they held the perimeter, you see, but the South Africans came up the main road with their tanks, you see, and they blew the Germans off this road, you see, so then it allowed them to come right through to us, you see, and we were released after that.
Was there any fear that the Germans would ever just shoot you? And were you hearing about what was going on in Germany with the Jews and everything?
Oh, not at that time. Oh, not at all. No, we had no information at all at that time like that.
And there was no fear that you would be shot, maybe?
No. Oh, well, the Germans, they used to bring in their wounded there, you know, and they had a field dressing station outside the camp where we were, you see, and you could see them there, bring them in. Because it was just a makeshift thing. It was nothing on straw, and lying on straw, you see. Well, there were a few of them died when we were in there. We seen them taking them out and burying them, you know, in the desert.
When you heard Pearl Harbor was bombed, everyone was glad in the prison camp. Did you know America was going to go into the war then?
Oh, not at all. Oh, no, we didn't know. But I mean, we knew whenever they attacked Pearl Harbor, it should be. I mean, the war started then. America had been. That's the first time we.
But did you think America was going to enter the war before that, or later on? What?
Oh, we did. Oh, we had that intention that she would eventually enter the war, like. Oh, yes.
So we're hoping for that.
Of course, we had a lot of gear there of Americans, even with jeeps, the American jeeps at that time. They supplied us with tanks, you know, and American tanks and jeeps.
They supplied the British or the New Zealanders?
The British. I mean, we had access to them just the same, like.
Now, the South Africans just released you from the prison. What happened next?
Well, we were taken out, the railhead didn't come somewhere about 20 miles on the other side of the Egyptian frontier, like this Egyptian railroad. And then they put us in their trucks, and we arrived back at the railhead, you see, to take us back to Cairo. So then, when we got on the train there, there was about 1,000 of us in that camp. We came back to Cairo, like there was Aussies, there was Australians on the train, and there was Indians, some British. It was a mixed crowd was in there. So then when they come to Cairo, you see there. We were separated. Every unit was taken to any man that felt ill or sick. Well, I was taken to the hospital at Helwan there, like, and then during the time we were there, we never had no razors. You were all bearded boys, you know, were all hair. So we were taken in there to the hospital and got clipped and shaved up. And anybody that wanted attention, like, he got it. And then as soon as he was cleared fit again, he was sent back to his own unit. So then we come back out to the Maddie, our campus outside of Maddie there, our camp.
Did you just want to go back to New Zealand after that, or you just wanted to keep on fighting?
What the hell could you do? Keep on fighting, sure, there's a war on. I mean, you enlisted, like, for the duration of the war, like. Christ, they'll throw you into the sea, they wouldn't take you nowhere. I mean, you're in a bad place to live back then, you see, you could do nothing about it.
When you were released, did you get back salary for the time you were in prison? Did you get that back pay?
Oh Lord, I owe your payment on, certainly, sir. Aye.
Where was the payment made when you were inside? Was it put into a bank, or when you were released, you were given the 6 weeks back pay for your imprisonment?
Oh, well, the New Zealanders, they had their own headquarters at Cairo, you see, where they deal with the pay and finance, you see. It was all there, you see, you have your pay book, you see. Well, we had still got our pay books on us, you see. Well, then when you went back to Cairo, if there's 7 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever time you were in there, they paid you that whatever you were allowed a week, you see.
What was the salary at the time?
Well, we didn't. You see, when we were in the Middle East, we were paid £1 a week. But then the rest of the money was kept and credit in New Zealand, like.
How much was that?
Well, we'd be getting about £3 a week, you see, and they were keeping 2 off, you see. And then that'll be when you go back home to New Zealand, or when the war be over, like, if you survived, that money was there for you, you see. But in the meantime, like, if you wanted extra money, they would give you extra money, £20 or 30 or 40, whatever you wanted, you see. If you needed it, they would mark it on your book, you see, and then it was all tallied up again, you know.
So what happened now after you were released? You went back to the front lines?
Oh Lord, no. Oh no, that was in early 42. We went back to Cairo to training. You know, we were training, and some of our fellows then went over to Turkey. They went to Syria up now to, on the border to Turkey there. They done some training up there, but we were kept in Cairo, outside the training camp there, and we'd done training and building bridges and pontoon bridges across the Suez Canal, you know, to keep something to do, you know. And then we were in Mali, you see, when the Germans came through there at Alamein. They come down and they broke through the frontier, Egyptian frontier, and that's we were called back then to Alamein.
You were in the Battle of El Alamein?
Yes, we were there when
Who was in charge of the Germans at the time?
Field Marshal, what's this German name now?
Rommel.
Rommel, aye, Field Marshal Rommel. We saw him the day he was there the day we were captured. Rommel. You know what?
Were there a lot of stories about Rommel?
Oh, there was. He was a. Well, even the British there, they claimed like he was a military genius, like he was a great leader, because he wouldn't have got through at El Agila there only for, you know, his military tactics, you see.
So what was the Battle of El Alamein? That was one of the biggest battles in World War II. What was it really?
What was it?
Yeah. Was it the turning point, and who won it and who was in it?
Well, that was the turning point, you see, when Rommel came through there. He came through from El Agila, you see. At that time, that was in May, you see. Well, I think the British intended to attack, you see, in June, you see. But Rommel, he always claimed, you see, the army that attacks first is the more fighting power. Well, he assumed, you see, at that time, you see, that the British was going to attack in June. So what he did, the British had the positions outside of Tobruk, you see, and they they were going to attack as far as intelligence we got, you see. They were going to attack in June, you see. But then Rommel, he decided he would attack before, because he thought, you see, the army that was prepared to attack had more firepower than the ones that were defending, you see. So anyhow, Rommel, they were, the British was Alagila, you see, and Rommel, he decided to attack, but this was only a sham, you see. He lined up his men and attacked this morning. Well, this was only a bluff. He sent in his tanks, you see. And right behind these screen of tanks were anti-tank guns. Well, at the gear that we had there in the Western Desert at that time, you see, well, there's too much of a waste there. Tanks against anti-tank guns wouldn't be very feasible in the desert, you see, because you're so far away from it. You could too many tanks knocked out, you see. You were sitting there just on, armour support. So Rommel, he sent out his tanks and engaged the British, you see, in a day-long battle. And then the Germans, this was their plan. They whenever night came, the Germans withdrew behind this wall, behind these anti-tank guns. So Acklenach, he was in charge of the 8th Army at that time. Well, of course, the general knew, I suppose the general in the field, he should have a fair idea of what's at his disposal, whether he can fight on or wit. So he decided that he would, when he assumed, I suppose, the Germans, that they retreated, you see, under pressure. So it wasn't under pressure, they retreated behind the walls.
On the design.
On the design, you see. Well, Auchinleck, the commander in the field, apparently, has the last say if it comes to a point of decision, you see, whether to attack or not.
This would have been a counterattack now.
It would have been. Well, apparently he has the last say. The War Office in London or wherever you get the instructions from, like, they would order him to attack, you see. Well, he would have the last say, commander in the field. He should know what he has at his disposal, whether to attack or not. But he decided to attack. So at that time, I would think he had about 300 or so tanks, well, there wouldn't have been very heavy tanks, there would have been a lot of armoured vehicles in it. So he decided to attack. So he attacked when the Germans withdrew behind this wall of fire. So the Germans, they opened up, you see, they shot off all their armour, and they didn't get through. So then the British Army was sitting in the desert there, and no armour. So then all Rommel had to do, he didn't bother going through that way at all. He went away right round, out. There's only the one road, you see, in the desert at that time. He cut the coast road, and then all the British that were in there was trapped.
Including yourself?
No, we weren't there at that time now. Oh no, we weren't in that. We were in Cairo at that time. Mm-hmm. No, we weren't there. No, they come on down. So then they cut the coast road and come on down. Well, whatever British got away, there were tanks and whatever could move, they all moved. And he come on down to the Egyptian frontier. Well, apparently now, according to statistics afterwards, that they thought that Rommel, he wanted to go on, like, to press on, you see. But then again, he had an orders from the German High Command, you see, to stop at the Egyptian frontier and regroup for the final drive for the Suez Canal, you see. So I think that for a wee bit was taken, not that he wanted it, I think, but the High Command orders them to regroup there on the Egyptian frontier. So he stopped there for about a week or so, regrouped. And then by the time that he was regrouping, our last line of defence was at El Alamein. That's only about 20 miles from Alexandria, you see. That's the last British defence line. So the Aussies was up there, and we got up, and the Indian divisions, and just they managed to stop him there at Alamein. So then once he was stopped, then he had to dig in. So that was till the other troops arrived. And they got tanks there. Well, that was in June, you see. And then the held them, that was static there from June to October. when Montgomery made the final drive.
So then what happened after that? How did the war progress from there?
Well, we were there then. We held the line there from June till October. Montgomery got built up, you see. And then we were told, well, we didn't know till a few days before it. Well, we knew that the attack would come sometime, so we were dug in there. And so on the 11th of October, the big barrage started.
From the Germans?
No, it was. We put over the barrage. Yeah. I don't know. It was a